Zessen and Jing are lying down, and Zessen, observing Jing closely, notices that he is sound asleep. Zessen then decides to try biting him to leave his mark, but Jing wakes up at that very moment and warns that he will take drastic measures if Zessen bites him. Zessen tries to excuse himself by claiming he only wanted to lick him and nothing more, but Jing, hearing this flimsy excuse, assumes he is lying and suspects he is actually trying to bite his scent glands. Zessen then grabs him, and Jing demands to be let go, but the alpha insists he just wants to hold him a bit longer, also asking Jing to stop rubbing against him, as it's starting to excite him again. After this intimate moment, the two begin talking about Quentin. Jing mentions that Quentin had said Zessen knows who the two founders of Kalfa are, which led him to decide there's simply no way to trust others. Jing adds that he plans to take them down as soon as he confirms their identities. The alpha expresses his desire to earn Jing's trust, assuring him that he will never betray him. However, Jing internally doubts, thinking it's impossible to fully trust someone who's putting so much effort into altering his body. Sometime later, Zessen and Jing meet with the twin brothers, and Jing asks Renyu if he has uncovered any suspicious activity on the dark web. Renyu replies that the only thing that caught his attention was a pet recently listed for auction. He explains that while selling pets is common, what's unusual is the exorbitant price, with bidding starting in the six-figure range. Another man questions if they're selling some kind of exotic animal for that price, but Jing clarifies that he is certain they are actually selling a human, as that's how Kalfa operates. Renyu confirms this, even revealing that both he and his brother, Manhwa, were once victims of Kalfa. Jing states that this organization focuses on its victims, while the illicit substances they deal with are merely an extra for auction participants. He goes on to say that Kalfa is already on the move, and if they want to avoid even more trouble, they must act now before the organization grows further. Zessen then asks if they know the location of the auction, and Renyu says they are searching and should have the information soon. The group then receives a signal, and upon analyzing the radar, realizes the auction will take place in a nearby city, the same one where Jing retired. Zessen, pleased, exclaims that this is now his territory, and sarcastically remarks on the proximity, saying that the Black Mamba crew must have a death wish to play so close to trouble. Jing states they need to head back there immediately. Later, we see Jing and Zessen return to the city, where they are welcomed by Mr. Su and his son, who tries to embrace Wen but is stopped by the alpha. Mr. Su asks where they've been all this time, and Zessen, maintaining his composure, says they've been enjoying themselves traveling through the Pacific Islands and visiting European castles. Mr. Su, enthusiastic, says he'd love to hear more about their adventures later and hands Jing a key. Jing, seeking information, asks if there's been any news in the city in recent days. Mr. Su responds that nothing significant has happened, except for some fun festivals. At that moment, Mr. Su recalls that one of his sons is in town on vacation. He calls out to his son, Zessen, and Jing shows a surprised expression upon hearing the name and seeing his face. Mr. Su, smiling, says he will give a brief introduction of everyone, mentioning that Su Zessen is his eldest son. He exclaims to Xiaowen that Zessen and she are the same age, noting they probably have many things in common. He then invites everyone to sit down, have something to eat, and get to know each other better, adding that he will need to step out briefly, but will return soon. He calls Ming Ming for assistance, who joins him with his usual cheerful demeanor. After the two leave, Zessen wastes no time pulling out a pair of handcuffs and approaching Jing. However, Jing reacts faster, drawing a gun and aiming it at Zessen. Meanwhile, Zessen watches the scene unfold, utterly confused about what is happening. The alpha asks Jing if they know each other, and Jing confirms, explaining that Zessen works for Interpol and caused him numerous problems during missions 10 years ago, always chasing him and becoming an additional challenge to overcome. Zessen, surprised, asks what Jing is doing there, mentioning he had heard Jing retired after sustaining severe injuries a decade ago. Connecting the dots, Zessen surmises that Jing might have chosen this place to settle after retiring, and meeting his father was likely a coincidence. Jing requests that Zessen call him while they are there, rather than Jing. Mr. Su returns, beaming with happiness, carrying drinks alongside Ming Ming, who brought some food. They want to celebrate Zaihang's return. Zaihang and Wen Jian shake hands, introducing themselves formally, while the alpha stands nearby with clenched fists, likely showing his characteristic jealousy. Mr. Su quips that standing around won't make anyone taller, and encourages everyone to sit and talk while eating. During the meal, Mr. Su tells the guests that his son, Zaihang, travels frequently because he works in global charity efforts, so having him home for lunch is a rare occasion. Jing listens to these words and internally scoffs, finding it absurd that Mr. Su believes his son works in charity. Jing knows how risky and demanding Zaihang's real job at Interpol is, which even justifies the lie to his father. Still, what bothers Jing most at that moment is Zaihang's constant staring, which even makes Zessen pay attention. Zaihang addresses Jing by his other name, Wen Jian, and asks what he has been working on. Wen replies that he has been involved in various projects. Zaihang smirks and sarcastically mentions that there is an opening in his office, and offers to help Wen secure the position if he's interested, making it clear he just wants to capture Jing and bring him back to Interpol. Zessen interrupts, stating that won't happen because Jing is currently working for him. Mr. Su, surprised, asks Zessen what he does for a living. Zessen vaguely and ironically responds that he runs a cleaning service specializing in eliminating dirt. This response delights Mr. Su, as he has been looking for help to clean his establishment. While Zaihang and Jing clean the table, Zessen and Mr. Su wash the glasses. Zaihang seizes the opportunity and handcuffs Jing. Jing grabs Zaihang by the shirt, asking if he has lost his mind, and demanding he remove the cuffs, emphasizing that his father shouldn't see them. Zaihang insists that capturing Jing has always been his goal, and now that he finally has the chance, he cannot let him escape. Zaihang questions why Jing is in the city, wondering if it's truly for retirement. He remarks on how easily he captured Jing, surprised by how much he seems to have let his guard down. When did you get so weak, he asks. Jing grabs a knife, ready to strike, but at that moment, Mr. Su turns to them, suggesting that Zaihang should take a walk to see how much the city has changed since his last visit. When Mr. Su sees them standing close together, seemingly on good terms, he remarks how well they must get along. At this, the sound of a glass shattering draws everyone's attention. Zessen had dropped it. He apologizes to Mr. Su, explaining he sometimes has a heavy hand. Zaihang observes that his father might be trying to pair him off, worried he'll die alone as an alpha. He recalls his father mentioning a beta he wanted Zaihang to meet, but didn't expect it to be Jing. Zaihang notices a mark on Jing's neck, grabs him to take a closer look, and demands to know if Zessen was responsible. Zessen, consumed by jealousy, throws a plate toward them, startling Mr. Su. Zessen apologizes, claiming it slipped from his hand. Jing tells Zaihang that if he doesn't want to face severe consequences, he'd better release him, warning that Zaihang really doesn't want to find out who Zessen is. However, Zaihang, intrigued, says he's even more curious now and demands to know who Zessen is and what their relationship entails, promising to let him go if he talks. At that moment, Ming Ming excitedly appears and announces that he wants to join them, saying he'd like to stay with Wen and explore the city too. Zaihang quickly unlocks the handcuffs to avoid his younger brother noticing, and tells Ming Ming he cannot join them because he needs to stay home and finish his homework. Ming Ming, disappointed, argues that it's unfair. Zaihang retorts that Ming Ming could better spend his time completing his homework rather than complaining. Zessen approaches Jing and remarks that Zaihang is becoming a problem, asking if Jing plans to do anything about it. Jing calmly replies that Zaihang is just doing his job, and he doesn't want Zessen interfering. Zessen, growing agitated, presses Jing, saying that Zaihang is just a cop, and there's no reason to fear him. He demands to know what the story is between them since it's obvious Zaihang knows Jing well. Jing, irritated, questions why that's any of Zwessen's business, which only fuels Zwessen's frustration. Acting on impulse, Zessen kisses Jing on the spot. Jing pushes him away and demands to know if Zessen has lost his mind for doing something like that in public. Zessen counters by asking why Jing has so many people in his life, and why he can't get rid of any of them. He also questions what he needs to do to make Jing focus solely on him. Irritated, Jing sarcastically responds that at least the others don't cross the line like Zessen just did, adding that tolerating Zwessen's nonsense should be more than enough to cool his temper. Jing rationally explains to the Alpha that if the Interpol officer discovers who Zessen is or his true intentions, things could become very complicated for them. Jing announces to Mr. Su that he's leaving, but Zessen blocks his path, reminding him of their plan to explore the city. With no other options, the three set out together. While walking, they are approached by someone who greets Xiaowen, saying it's been a long time since they last met. The person asks if Xiaozhua is the foreign friend Mr. Su mentioned, to which Jing affirms and hands them chocolates he says he brought from Europe. The person thanks him, then notices Zessen and asks who he is, prompting Jing to question how someone from the city doesn't recognize him. Zessen introduces himself as Mr. Su's eldest son from the cafe. To everyone's shock, he wraps his arm around Jing and declares that Jing is now his boyfriend. Zessen, overwhelmed with rage and jealousy, feels as though his soul is leaving his body. Jing signals Zessen to calm down, while the person remarks that they make a lovely couple. The person, apparently a cafe receptionist, invites them inside. Jing, unsure of how to handle the situation, decides to let things play out for the moment. Inside the cafe, Mr. Su and Zessen sit at a separate table. Zessen, visibly irritated, questions why they aren't sitting with the others. Mr. Su casually replies that it wouldn't be polite to interrupt the lovebirds, and shifts the conversation by asking Zessen about his recent trip. At the other table, Zessen and Xiaowen sit together. Zessen offers Xiaowen a bite of his food, feeding it to him directly. After brief hesitation, Xiaowen accepts, drawing admiration from everyone in the cafe who watches the interaction. However, Zessen grows increasingly enraged, to the point of nearly breaking the table with his bare hands. Jing, sensing the tension, uses one hand to lift the menu, creating a blind spot, while with the other, he grabs a knife. He stabs the knife between Zessen's fingers and demands to know what he thinks he's doing. Zessen laughs, amused that Jing is finally taking things seriously. He asks if Jing is ready to reveal who Xiaozhua is and what their relationship entails. Zessen also notes he spotted many men on rooftops during their walk, questioning if they work for Jing and what they're plotting. He warns Jing that if he refuses to answer, he'll uncover his identity and true intentions on his own. Jing, annoyed by Zessen's audacity, slaps his hand away and stands up, saying he can do whatever he pleases, then walks off. Zessen chases after him, calling for Jian to wait. He hugs Jing and asks him to calm down, whispering that it's okay if he doesn't want to talk, but everything is becoming too obvious. He says he already figured out that the men on the rooftops are part of their team. Zessen mentions how intrigued he is because the Jing he knew always worked alone. He never thought he'd see Jing collaborating with others. Using his deductive skills, Zessen hypothesizes that Jing retired here, and this group essentially took over the city uninvited for some unknown reason. Since Jing's skills aren't what they used to be, it's been difficult for him to escape, especially with Xiaozua's evident obsession with him. After laying out his theory, Zessen asks if he's right, and Jing's silence confirms it. Realizing an opportunity, Zessen offers Jing a deal. If he reveals who that man is and what he wants, Zessen will help him escape. Jing stares at him and asks why he would bother escaping with Zessen, when it would likely lead to being handed over to Interpol. Zessen explains that his organization allows criminals to work as consultants on certain cases. Although their activities would be limited, there are still significant benefits. As Zessen pitches his idea, a flower vase flies past his head, narrowly missing him thanks to his quick reflexes. While Jing looks mildly surprised, accustomed to Zwessen's tantrums, Zessen is visibly shocked as he glances at his rival, standing beside the woman who owned the vase. Smiling, Zessen apologizes, saying the vase was slippery and assuring the woman that the white-haired man, Zessen, will cover the damages. As Zessen pays for the damage caused by Zessen, the Alpha approaches Jing, jealousy evident, and places his hands on Jing's face. He asks why Jing keeps looking at Zessen, questioning if he has feelings for him. Jing, visibly uncomfortable with Zessen being so close, demands to know what he's talking about and asks if Zessen is planning to kiss him in public. Irritated, Jing tells Zessen to stop causing a scene. Zessen, dramatically, asks why Jing keeps looking at him if he doesn't like him. Jing dryly responds that he's staring because there's something strange about him. The scene shifts to Lai, patrolling the city and reflecting that he's checked the northern areas, but hasn't found anyone linked to Black Mamba or Kalfa. While lost in thought, a group of shady-looking men approaches him. One of them, smirking, calls Lai handsome and says they're new in town, asking if he could show them around. Initially, Lai considers whether they might be connected to Black Mamba, but their demeanor suggests they're just a bunch of thugs. Deciding they're not worth the trouble, Lai moves to leave, but one of them steps forward and taunts him, asking if he's ready to head to the afterlife early. Before Lai can react, someone appears and grabs the man by the head, revealed to be Gao Rinyu, before throwing him aside. Lai, surprised to see Rinyu, asks if he's following him. Rinyu denies it, saying he's acting on orders from the boss, who wants them to patrol together. Lai, clearly displeased, says he has no interest in teaming up with a branch capo and tries to leave. However, 5 minutes of conversation later, Lai reluctantly changes his mind, and they proceed together. As they walk, a stranger approaches Lai, asking for his phone. However, upon seeing Renyu's intimidating expression, the stranger quickly apologizes for bothering them and leaves in a hurry. Rinyu casually mentions hearing that alphas are more attracted to marked omegas. Offended, Lai snaps back, saying people are drawn to him because he's attractive, not because he's marked. Lai sternly tells Rinyu to stop trivializing marking and suppression, but Rinyu, emboldened, crosses the line by asking when Lai will next go into heat. Lai coldly replies that it's none of his business. Night falls, and the scene shifts to Zessen and Jing dining in a candlelit setting, with starlight visible through a nearby window. As they eat, Zessen cuts a piece of meat and offers it to Jing, mimicking Zihong's earlier gesture at the cafe. Jing, in a decidedly unromantic tone, says he can feed himself. However, Zessen, irritated by Jing's interaction with Zihong, asks why Zihong can do it but he can't. Feeling cornered, Jing thinks that refusing Zessen could provoke a problematic reaction, and since they're alone, it's better to give in. He reluctantly accepts. Zessen then declares it's Jing's turn to do something for him. Specifically, he wants Jing to feed him a piece of chocolate directly from his mouth.